everyone, thanks for tuning in. In this video I'm going to continue working on the kitchen in my bus. So in my last video I put on the bench top on this kitchen cabinet that I built, and I also put in some shelves on the inside. I've actually changed things up a little bit since that video because I think, as I mentioned last time, one of the things that I want to store in this cabinet is the binding machine that I use to make my books that I sell through my business, and it weighs 25 kilos, so it's quite heavy. And originally I was just going to have it sitting on a shelf to be able to be pulled out and put up on the workbench when I want to use it, but I actually brought it into the bus and tried that a few times, and it's just too awkward to slide out on a shelf. So what I did was I went ahead and put in a drawer slide so I can actually pull it out like a drawer, and it just makes it a lot easier for me to lift on and off. So I'll just show you that. Hopefully you can see. So I've kept the same shelf, but rather than just having it sit on the aluminium angle, I installed it onto some drawer slides. And these are heavy duty lockable drawer slides that I actually bought when I had the big bus, and I was originally going to put a passenger seat right at the very front of the bus and have a pull-out floor that came out over the top of the stairwell in that bus. And so I bought these drawer slides for that, and they're actually rated to carry, I think, about 125 or 150 kilos. Anyway, they're super strong, so they're way more than I need to support this 25 kilo binding machine. But since I had them, I thought I may as well use them, and they're quite expensive, so I'm pretty pleased that I can finally put them to some use. So they're lockable, so I'm not sure if you can see underneath the shelf here these orange tabs. So when the drawer is fully closed, it locks into position and you can't pull it out. So if I just push these tabs down, I can slide out the drawer and it will slide all the way out and then lock into position again. So my binding machine can just sit there and I can easily pull it off and lift it up onto the bench. So I will also be putting a few extra things into this shelf to act like stoppers so that this binding machine isn't sliding around inside the cabinet when I'm driving. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. That was the first and probably the only drawer I'm ever going to make because it was actually quite tricky to get these runners in the exact right spot, especially because this cabinet's fairly narrow. Yeah, it wasn't fun, so I'm not keen to do it again. Drawers are great, but oh my goodness, they're a pain to build. But anyway, I'm really happy with that. So what I'm going to do today is to build a little extension that's going to go on the front of this bench, because I think I mentioned this in my last video. This bench top is 600 deep, which is like the standard depth for a bench top here in Australia, and that would be fine, except that I have a little mini oven air fryer thing that I want to have sitting on the bench all the time. I didn't want to have to find space in a cabinet and be sort of lifting it in and out all the time because it's quite bulky and reasonably heavy. So I actually want to sit that on the bench all the time, and it will come out to, it's about 400 deep. So it's going to come out to here. So it doesn't leave a lot of bench space at the front for a dish rack, which I also want to be able to put up here from time to time. So I want to extend this bench top out so that it comes out kind of level with where the bed is. And I couldn't have a fixed bench top that depth because I need all of this space if I ever need to get my fridge out of the bus. It has to come through this way, and it won't fit if the bench top is out as far as here. But what I'm going to do is actually build a little extension that's going to go on the front of this cabinet, and then that will give me my extra bench space, and if I ever need to get the fridge out of the way, I can just unbolt this little extension and get it out the way, and I've got all of this space again. Okay, so like most things in this bus, I'm just making this up as I go along, but this is the basic idea that I'm thinking. So it's just going to be a narrow little sort of cabinet frame really that I'm going to build to start with, that'll be the same height as the kitchen cabinet and just wide enough that I can put that extra bench top piece on that I need to extend the bench top out. So I'll start by making two sort of basic cabinet frames, and these will have some cross braces. I'll work out sort of where I want shelves inside this, because this will give me a little bit of storage as well. And rather than just sitting on the floor, this extension is actually going to be on wheels. So I've got some little caster wheels that I bought. So I'll be attaching those to the base. And then there'll be some shelves. And then there'll be a back on this little piece of cabinet. So the part that faces the hallway in the kitchen will be closed off. And then the other side will be open. So if you turn this around, it'll just look like an open kind of a bookcase sort of shelf arrangement. And then I'll be able to, so this will then butt up against the main cabinet, which is in here. And I'm going to have some latch bolts that will actually latch this thing on to the front of the main cabinet. So these bolts and the brakes that I've got on the caster wheels will hopefully hold this section of the cabinet in place, and it won't move around when I'm driving. And then when I want to access the storage inside here, or if I need to get this out of the way to move a fridge or whatever, I can just unlock the wheels, unlatch these bolts, and move this whole thing out of the way. First thing I'm going to do is actually just do the base and attach the wheels, because the important thing is this whole cabinet here, including the wheels, needs to be exactly the same height as the other kitchen cabinet, so that when I put the bench top on, it will align perfectly with the bench top on the main cabinet. And I'm just not sure, you know, the size of these wheels once they're bolted in, what sort of space they're going to take up. So I'm going to do that first, and then I'll be able to get the measurement that'll tell me exactly how high the rest of this cabinet needs to be. So these are the little caster wheels that I bought from Bunnings. They're reasonably small, but they feel really strong and good quality. And you can see that they have this bolt. This is an M10 size bolt that will bolt up through the base of the trolley, and they've all got brakes on them. So you can push that down and the wheels won't turn. So that's what I'm going to use. Okay, so I've got my two wheels on the base here. So that's how high off the ground it needs to be for the wheels to work. So now I just have to measure this distance up to here, and I'll know what height I need to build the rest of the cabinet. Okay, so you can see now it's just exactly the right height to match the kitchen cabinet, which means when I put the bench top on top of this piece, it should line up nicely with the main bench top. So now I just need to make another one of these exactly the same size. Alright guys, well that's the frame of the trolley done. So as you can see, I just did another one of these support frames, exactly the same as I did the first one. And I've put in some cross braces. There's a couple on the top here, so the bench top will be screwed down onto this. And then I've put in a couple more, sort of one in the bottom, one at the middle, and I'm actually going to be putting some shelves across here. So I'll take it into the bus and I'll show you how it's going to look. Okay guys, so that's about where it's going to sit. So now I'm going to put the shelves on, and then I can clad the sides and the back here. And then I'll also have a couple of more bracing pieces to put across the front, just to stop the things that I'm going to be putting in the shelves from falling out. Yeah, so I can go and do all that now. Oh boy, it is hot. I'll tell you what, I will be glad when this bus is finished and I can drive away from Queensland summer. I'm totally over it. Anyway, So I've got a piece of ply here. This is 9mm ply, and I've just cut it to the right width on my table saw. And now what I'm going to do is just cut some notches out of the corners so that it will kind of sit down in around the frame here. I'm just going to mark out where I'm going to cut the notches and just do that on my jigsaw and hopefully get it to sit in there nicely. Well, it's a bit rough, but the shelf does fit in there, which is good. This bottom shelf's easy because I've got the bracing around all four sides, so I'll be able to nail the shelf down into that. The top one's a little bit trickier because I don't have a bracing piece across the front here, and I did that on purpose because actually in this bottom shelf I want to be able to store my big bottles of glue that I use when I'm making my books, and I pretty much need the full height of this. Like if I put this shelf in, I pretty much need this full height to be able to lift the bottles up and out of the shelf. And if I was to put another bracing piece across here like this one, it would take like 40mm off my height, and I wouldn't be able to get my hand in there properly to get the glue out. But I just don't want that bowing too much. It's not too bad, but what I'm going to do is just put a couple of angle brackets on the ends here because I can screw them in to the frame here, and that will hopefully just give it a little bit extra support at the front here. Okay guys, well the frame is pretty much finished. So as you can see, I've put the shelves in and I've put a couple of pieces across the front, and this is so, like for instance, this is one of the big bottles of glue that I want to be able to store in here. So so this will stop it coming forward, and I can lift it out pretty easily like that. So the only thing left to do now is to clad the sides and the back, which is actually this, and put the bench top on. So this is actually going to be facing this way onto the cabinet. So the cabinet's going to be here. This will be actually be the part that faces the cabinet, and so I'm going to be putting a full back on this, and I'm just going to use ply. So I'll just do 3mm ply to cover the entire back, and then I'm going to go around the edges with 9mm ply just so that it looks a little bit like the cabinet doors that I've got on the other cabinets, to match those a little bit. So when you're looking at it, like when it's attached to the bench, this side will be fully enclosed, and to access the stuff that I'm going to store inside, I'll actually unlatch it from the cabinet and pull it out, and then I'll be able to get to my stuff. But I'm going to call it quits for today because it is hot and I'm tired and I can't believe it took me all day just to build that. But anyway, hopefully tomorrow I will be able to get the cladding and the bench top on, and we'll get it attached to the rest of the cabinet. Well, good morning everyone. It's another day, and hopefully today I will get this cabinet extension finished. I've actually made a couple of changes to this since I ended the video yesterday. I took the wheels off the bottom because I just wasn't happy with them. Because they're swivel wheels, they tend to move around quite a bit, which makes it fantastic for maneuvering the trolley around. It's very easy to move around on the wheels, but it just meant that every time I pushed the trolley back up against the cabinet, it was a slightly different height and it was sitting just a little bit differently, you know, just because the wheels were in a slightly different alignment, and it was too hard to get the top of the cabinet to sit perfectly flush with the top of the main cabinet, and it was just irking me because I couldn't get the bench tops lined up nicely, and the cabinet didn't want to sit kind of straight up against the main cabinet. So I ended up taking the wheels off and I've just extended the base with solid timber. And since I did that, every time I put it up against the main cabinet, it sits perfectly straight and flush. So I'm much happier with that. And this cabinet is pretty lightweight, and even with the things that I'm going to be storing in it, I'll be able to easily lift it. So I don't think it's going to be an issue that it's not going to be on wheels. I'll just be able to unlatch it and pull it out of the way easily. So anyway, now that I'm happy with how it's sitting in the bus, today what I'm going to do is put the cladding and the bench top on. There's just one more thing I need to do before I put the cladding on the sides, and that is I just want to put a couple more cross braces at the top here on either side, so that I've got a bit more meat to screw in the latch bolts that are going to be sitting about here. Because I'm only cladding this with 3mm ply, it's not going to be thick enough to hold a screw, and I need these latch bolts to be pretty secure, because obviously they're the thing that's going to be holding this thing into the main cabinet. So I'm just going to do that first, and then I can go and do the cladding. Well, there it is in position with all the cladding. So you can see what I did here. I just put I covered it with 3mm ply first, and then I just put some strips of 9mm ply just to try and match it a little bit to the style of the cabinet doors that are in the rest of the kitchen. I'm pretty happy with that. I still need to put a couple little pieces of ply at the front here just to trim that off. If you're wondering why this cabinet is so high off the floor and why I've left this space in here, it's because I plan to install my diesel heater at the bottom of this main cabinet, and I need to allow space for the hot air outlet to come out, because it's going to be blowing the warm air from the heater out this way. So I just wanted to leave this space free so there's plenty of space for the nice warm air to come out through there. Alright, so now before I put the bench top on, the next thing I'm going to do is just put in the couple of latch bolts that are going to be what attaches the extension to the main cabinet. These are the latch bolts I'm going to use. Just got them from Bunnings. So that will go on to the side of the cabinet there, and it will latch into another piece that goes on the main cabinet here. So I'm going to do that, one on this side and one on the other side. Well, I've just realised something with these latch bolts that I've put on. And of course, I only realised it after I had put them on. And they turned out so perfectly too. But they're not actually going to do the job that I had in my head that they would do. So as you can see, I've got this latch bolt like working perfectly here. And it will stop this cabinet moving sideways like this way, but it's not actually going to stop it moving out away from the main cabinet, because you can see like it can just pull straight out of the bolt there. And that's kind of what I had in mind that they would do, but of course they're not going to work that way. What I actually need is a kind of a latch that has something here that stops it coming forward this way. I did such a good job of lining this one up, but it's just not going to do the job that I need it to do. So I'll have to take this one off and put a different sort of latch on there. Alright guys, well, I just did a run to Bunnings and got a couple of these kind of latches. So that should work a bit better. I'll just open one up and show you what I'm thinking. So basically, I think these will work better because I can attach them like this, and I'm not going to be able to show you this with one hand, but basically this little part here will screw on to that, and then this can hook down in there, and because it's got the hook, it won't be able to come this way, which is what I want. So I'm going to take these ones off and put these ones on instead. It's going to mean that I'm going to have a bunch of little holes in my nice fresh ply there, but it won't matter because I'm going to be painting these cabinets, and so I'll be able to just fill in those holes and paint over them, and hopefully you won't notice them. But yeah, I just wish I'd kind of realised that before I installed those hinges. But anyway, yeah, just a typical day on the bus. Like I said, I'm making all this up as I go along. So yeah, anyway, let's get these latches switched over, and hopefully today at some stage I will get the bench top on this thing. Alright guys, well that was super easy to install. I was actually able to use the existing holes over here to screw this one in, which was good. I just had to drill a couple new holes for this one, so I'm going to have to fill these in and paint them, but that shouldn't be too much of a drama. So I've got this latch here on this side, and I've also got one on this side. And I can still open this door here, so that's good. And so now I cannot pull that cabinet away from the main cabinet at all, so that's perfect. So now I can go ahead and put the little piece of bench top on. Now I've measured this width here that I actually need the bench top. If I match the 10mm overhang that I've got on this side out here, I need a piece that's 150mm wide. Now I actually have this piece left over from the other block when I cut the splashback for here. It's 155mm wide, and what I'm thinking is I might just use this rather than, I mean, I could try ripping a little 5mm strip off it on the table saw, but you know, that's a fine little cut, and I don't want to muck this up because I don't have another piece that's big enough to be able to cut a piece this size. I have one piece left, but I'm hoping to use it in the bathroom for the bathroom bench, so I don't want to cut that. So this is the only piece I have that will be big enough for this. So I'm thinking I might just leave it, because if I put it up here, it's a bit hard to see because obviously it needs to be cut to length, but it actually doesn't look that bad compared to the other side. It means it's going to have like a 15mm overhang here and a 10mm on this side. Honestly, I don't think it's enough to notice, and I'd rather just keep this piece intact and not risk damaging it. So all I need to do now is work out the length that I want here and cut it to size and then screw it on. There it is, guys. I'm really happy with it actually. It lines up with the main bench top pretty well. Gives me enough depth to put my bench top oven and a dish rack in front of it as well. When I want to access what's inside here, I just undo these latches. Whoops. And I can get to the shelves under here. I can also then access what's in this cabinet here. And of course I can get this right out of the way if I ever need to get the fridge out, and I still have the full width of the hallway here. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. It'll look even nicer when it's all painted. Yeah, another job done.